Hi, I'm Sherry Carter, and I am a Master Food Volunteer from Kansas State. What I'm going to do today is show you how to accurately measure and let you realize that measuring for a baked product is very, very important that it's accurate. If you're measuring for things like a chili, a lasagna, being accurate isn't quite as important. But in a baked product, it's very, very important. If you don't measure accurately, your product might not turn out like you want it to be. So today, I'm going to make chocolate chip cookies to show you how to do this. In front of me, I have many different measuring utensils. I have dry measuring cups here. I have a liquid measuring cup, and I have measuring spoons. And then I also have a straight edge spatula and a rubber spatula, which will help me in measuring. Now, each one of these measuring tools has a certain purpose. Your dry measuring cups only measure dry ingredients, such as flour and sugar. They measure solid ingredients, like if you cut up apples or you have pecans, and creamy ingredients like shortening or butter. Your liquid measuring cup only measures liquid. Your measuring spoons measure anything that's less than 1/4 of a cup. And then these utensils are just used to help you while you're measuring. I'm going to go ahead and start with the liquid measuring cup. Even though in this chocolate chip recipe there is no liquid, I want to show you how to measure a liquid. So I'm going to measure water. And when you're measuring water, you need to take your liquid measuring cup, and you don't hold it up like this. You need to put it on a flat surface. Let's say I'm going to measure 1/2 of a cup. And then in order to read it, I have to lean over and get an eye level. And it's a little bit less than 1/2 of a cup, so I'm going to put a little bit more in there. That's how you measure a liquid. We don't, like I said, we don't have a liquid in our chocolate chip cookies. Now, I'm going to first start out with my dry ingredients. So I'm going to start out with flour. Flour, you're going to take, and we need 2 1/4 cups. You're going to take it, and you're going to spoon it out into your measuring cup so that it is overflowing. And then, when you get it overflowing, you're going to take your spatula or your straight edge and kind of cut through it, and then you level it off going away from you. Don't do it towards you or you're going to have a mess. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put it into my bowl because I need to use this again. So I need another cup. Now, one of the things, the purpose for flour in your cookies or any baked product is to form its structure. If you don't have flour, you won't have any structure to your chocolate chip cookies or bread or anything like that. So you have to have flour for that. And there's all kinds of flour. There's all-purpose flour, cake flour, whole wheat flour. I'm using all-purpose today. So once again, I'm going to level it off, put it into my bowl, and then I need 1/4 of a cup. I'm going to spoon my flour, once again, into my cup and go away from me. Now, you could also use a knife or anything that has a straight edge will work. Next ingredient that I'm going to do is my salt. Now, when you measure salt, the purpose of salt in your product is to give it flavor. Now, it's not going to give you a salt flavor. It's going to make all the other ingredients, the butter, the vanilla, the shortening, their flavors to blend and make your cookies taste good. You should never taste the salt. So it's just to enhance the other flavors. So we need a teaspoon. So I'm going to take it. Now, you could measure it over your counter and then clean up your mess, but I need 1/2 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to measure it over my custard cup and shake it. I usually just shake it off and then put it into my flour. Then I'm going to do my leavening agents. And leavening agents are ingredients that make your food rise. Here I have the 2 major leavening agents. I have baking powder and baking soda. They look exactly alike, but they're not. They work a little bit different in your product. So if you have a recipe that says baking soda and you go to your pantry and you don't have any baking soda, you cannot substitute baking powder or vice versa. You always have to make sure you use the right one that's written in your recipe. Now, one of the things that manufacturers have done to help us is they always put baking soda in a box type container, and they put baking powder in a jar type container. Now, with your baking soda always kind of has this little flat, so we need a teaspoon. So you're going to go in there and you're going to get your, my box is kind of big. I'm going to have more than I need, level it off, and put it in here. Now, your baking powder usually has some kind of a ledge or an edge like that you can measure into and then level it off. All right, now we have all of our dry ingredients that we need, and we're gonna take it and we're gonna mix it together. So we're gonna take our rubber spatula and mix this all together. And the reason we do this is because we don't want to have a big old chunk of baking soda or salt in a cookie that we have. And this way it evenly distributes in our flour. Now, some people like to sift, and you could sift this. If you have a sifter, you can take these ingredients and run it through the sifter and it would do the same thing. But I feel like in a cookie, you don't need to sift. I feel like sifter is to make your product lighter, and cookies, you wouldn't be able to tell if they're lighter even if you sifted them. So I think just mixing them like this works well. All right, now we're gonna get into our other ingredients. We're gonna measure out sugar, and we need 3/4 of a cup. Now, my measuring cups right here, which is a standard set of measuring cups, only has 4 cups. It has a cup, a half of a cup, 1/4 of a cup, or a 1/3 of a cup, and a 1/4 of a cup. Now, it doesn't have a 3/4 cup, so what am I gonna do? Well, if you take a 1/4 of a cup and a half of a cup, that equals 3/4 of a cup. So I'm gonna take my sugar or my measuring utensil, I'm going to take it, overflow it, like so, and you can either shake it off or take your straight edge and level it off, like that. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with our 1/4 of a cup, and once again, level it off. Now, the next sugar that I'm gonna be using is brown sugar. Now, brown sugar is totally different. Now, both of these sugars add taste to your product. They also make it brown. So they're very necessary. It's gonna make your cookie be browner, it's gonna make your bread turn brown, and you need sugar of some kind, or a molasses or something like that. So I'm gonna take this brown sugar, and your recipe is never gonna tell you to pack it, but whatever recipe you're using, you always know that you pack your brown sugar. If you don't, you won't have enough brown sugar for your cookies or whatever you're making. It won't tell you to pack it most of the time. Now, sometimes it'll say, don't pack it, so then you don't pack it, but that doesn't happen very often. Now, I do have a set of measuring cups here that have a 3/4 cup, so I'm going to use it. And I'm gonna take it, and I'm going to overflow my measuring cup, and then I'm gonna take a spoon, or you could use your hands, but I'm gonna use a spoon and pack it tightly into my measuring cup to get all the air out of it, like so. So there I have my brown sugar. Now, the next ingredient that I'm going to measure out is my shortening. Now, my shortening, and I need a half of a cup, is kind of messy. So I usually take a spoon or the rubber spatula, and I take it like this, and I put it into my cup. And once again, you overflow it. And if you notice, there's air pockets in there. So you need to take it and you need to pack and smooth out your shortening so there is no air pockets. So there's my shortening. Now what shortening does in your products is it makes it tender. So you need it, or you're going to have kind of hard type bread or muffins or your cookies. It makes it very tender if you have the shortening in it. Then I'm going to use butter or margarine. Now, you don't have to measure this out. On the side of your margarine or butter, there are tablespoons markings. Each of these markings is a tablespoon. 1 or 8 tablespoons is equal to 1/2 cup. 4 tablespoons is equal to a fourth of a cup. So you don't have to measure it out. If you did measure it out, you would do exactly like you did with the shortening. Now I use margarine just because I like how it makes my cookies be chewy, but you can use butter also. That's sort of a opinion type thing. So you can kind of do what you want. Now I will tell you that changing the brown sugar to a dark brown sugar will change your cookies. Using all butter or margarine will make your cookies be very flat and crispy, which some people like their chocolate chip cookies that way. Some people put all shortening in, and by putting all shortening in it, they're more cake-like, but I like mine to be chewy, so I use 1/2 and 1/2. Now this might be something that you might want to experiment at home and use different things, different ingredients, and see what happens. It's kind of interesting to see the difference of the cookie and how it tastes. All right, my next ingredient is eggs, and I have to do 2 eggs. One of the things you need to do when you're doing eggs is you should always crack them in a separate bowl, just to make sure they're good. And I usually just crack them on the edge, take my fingers, like so. I didn't get any shells, so I don't have to worry about that. And I'm going to go ahead and put them in here. Then I'm going to do my second one. And I didn't get any shells in it, so I don't have to be digging them out. If you do get a shell in them, all you have to do is take your shell, and they'll stick right to this shell, and they'll come out very easily. So here are my 2 eggs. What the egg does, it makes your food rise also. So it is also a leavening agent, and it works with your baking powder and baking soda. Then my last ingredient is vanilla. And I need a teaspoon of vanilla. And once again, I am going to measure it. I'm going to just, here, I'll measure it over this. I'm going to measure it over this, a teaspoon, and then put it in my custard cup. So, these are all the ingredients that I'm going to mix first before I put the flour and baking soda and salt into it. We already have measured all of our ingredients, and now we're ready to put them all together. The first directions in all cookie recipes is to cream the ingredients. And what that means is you're going to put together your shortening, your sugars, your vanilla, your butter, and your eggs into your bowl and mix them until they're nice and fluffy. So we're using a standard mixer, but you could also use a hand mixer. So I'm going to dump in my sugar, my brown sugar. Now see how this forms like a sandcastle? That means I've really packed my sugar. I'm going to put my vanilla, my 2 eggs, my butter, and I did kind of chop my butter up so it'd be a little bit easier to mix, and my shortening. And you'll probably need to get out a rubber spatula in order to get all of this shortening out of your cup. Then I'm going to put it into my mixer. Let me move my mixer a little bit. Put it down, and I'm going to start it out on slow so that everything doesn't jump out at me. Once I've kind of mixed it a little bit, then I can raise it to a higher speed and try to get this to be creamy. Now, creamy means that I shouldn't see any ingredient in my bowl, such as I shouldn't see chunks of butter, I shouldn't see sugar. It should all be one fluffy ingredient. Now, I'm noticing that over here on the side that my shortening isn't mixing very well, so I'm going to stop it, lift it up, and I am going to take my rubber spatula and go around the sides to get it all into the center, and then start it again. And I'm going to turn it up pretty high so we can get this mixed nice and good. Then our next thing that we're going to be doing after we get this nice and creamy is that I have all of my dry ingredients that we mixed in a bowl. So in this bowl I've got our flour, our salt, and our baking soda. And I'm going to slowly incorporate it into the creamy ingredients. Now, you're not going to want to dump all of it in at one time, because if you do, it's going to fly all over the place. So I think we have this nice and creamy now, so that it looks like that it's nice and creamy and you don't see any one ingredient. Okay, I'm going to stop it. And what I'm going to do, I've already mixed this up. I'm going to, let me take this off and I'm going to add just a little bit of my flour mixture into my bowl. And once again, I'm going to start this very slow so I don't have flour jumping out all over me. And once I've got most of it moistened, I can turn it up and mix it together. Then I'm going to stop it and repeat this. So I'm going to take it off, add a little bit more of my flour, and mix it again. Starting slow, and then going a little bit faster to get it mixed. Now, on this last time, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and scrape this so it doesn't follow all over the bottom of my mixer. I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to take my rubber spatula and go around the edge once again, making sure I get all the ingredients down into the center of my bowl. Okay, one last time. Add my flour ingredients, my dry ingredients. Put it on here. Start it on slow. And then go a little bit faster. Now, I go ahead and add my chocolate chips and use the mixer. Some people don't like to do that, but I think it works really well to get all your chocolate chips mixed in. And I have 2 cups of chocolate chips here. I'm going to slowly mix them so that they get evenly distributed in my dough. Alrighty, I got it finished. Now I have a big old glob of dough on my beater, so I'm going to take it off. Now, one of the things that I do want to caution you, a lot of people like to eat the batter because the batter is very good, but I caution you not to do that because in this batter is a raw egg, and you never know if the raw egg has salmonella in it and could make you very sick. Once you cook the cookies, there's no issue because it's going to be killed. All right, so I have my cookies mixed up, and I am going to use a cookie dipper, okay? And I have already prepared my pans. I'm using parchment paper, and make sure it's parchment paper and not freezer paper. And I'm going to take my scoop, flatten my dough, and I'm going to put 3 across and 4 down. So you will not put more than 12 cookies on your pan. Now, the reason is these cookies are going to spread, and you don't want them to spread into each other. Now, there are some cookies that you don't have to do this, like sugar cookies. Sugar cookies, they just rise up. They don't spread out. So, but ours do spread out quite a bit. So I'm going to put 12 only on my cookie sheet. Now, I'm only going to do one pan right now, but I preheated my oven probably about 5 minutes ago, and we needed 375 was the temperature that we needed. So I set my timer, or my preheat, and I needed to preheat it for 5 minutes because it takes that long for your oven to heat up. My oven is already heated up, so I'm going to take my cookies over to the oven. You need to open up the door all the way and probably should also, I didn't do this, you need to pull out your rack. Put your cookies in. And if you have 2 cookie sheets, you'll put one on this side and one on the other side on the bottom. But I think I'm going to do mine like this because I'm not sure they're going to fit. But you need to allow some air to be able to circulate around them. Then I'm going to put my cookies in the oven. I'm going to set my timer. It said 9 to 11 minutes. So I'm going to set it on the lesser time, because if they're not done, I can always cook them again a little bit longer. But if you cook them for 11 minutes, the longer time, that might burn them. So you always start the timer on the lesser amount. All right, we should have our cookies ready to eat in 11 minutes. Hope you have a good time making your own. Thank you.